Greetings to all IELTS and PTE examinees worldwide. Once again, we are 9.09er and tonight we are live here at Connectics College FB Live. First things first, we would like to thank the people behind Connectics. Miss Tanya, Miss Jennifer, Miss Luciana, also Miss Milanes, who is always behind the Connectics FB Live every Monday night. So for the benefit of those who are attending for the very first time, Connectics College features free classes on NCLEX, IELTS, OET, PTE. So every first and third Monday of the month, NCLEX lecturers are being featured here on Connectics FB page. Every second and fourth Monday of the month, it's the turn of the English Review Center partners of Connectics to do the Facebook Live session. So second Monday of the month, it's the turn of Swoosh English, while fourth Monday of the month, it's the turn of 9.09er. For tonight, Sir Brian and I will be discussing IELTS and PTE reading. Last month, we did IELTS and PTE writing, but for tonight, it's IELTS and PTE reading. So now, let's take a look at the composition of our attendees. We have 66 live viewers. Will you please mention your location so that we can properly greet you? At the same time, kindly tag your friends, inform them that we have an ongoing live session for tonight so that if they are still undecided which examination is going to maximize their potential in going to the United States, hopefully this free info session will help them to pick between the two examinations. What are the similarities? What are the differences between IELTS and PTE? So Sir Brian is here with us for tonight. Sir Brian, will you please greet our live viewers worldwide?
Oh yeah, hi guys, and sorry I have technical difficulty with my microphone. I hope you guys can hear me. Uh, good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining our session. And today we're going to have an insightful discussion about the IELTS and the PTE reading components, two of the most popular English examinations right now for your US visa application, and also I think one of the subtests in which many people struggle in. So this is actually a subtest that a lot of people need preparation for and guidance, perhaps, and usually don't get that advice elsewhere. So here with Kinetics College and 9.09er, we're going to be able to provide help and guidance to you so that you can successfully clear your PTE or IELTS reading test.
Thank you for that, Sir Brian. Now let's take a look at the composition of our 83 live viewers. We'd like to encourage everyone to tag their friends because with more live viewers, definitely there's more interaction. If ever you cannot attend the live version, you can always watch the recorded version because this will be available on the FB page of Kinetics USA Nursing. It's just that it's different when you attend live because you can ask questions. Sir Brian and I are going to address these, answer these questions for you. Let's take a look at Memi or Memay Labiaro Kaberik. Thank you so much for tagging your friend Noy Zuniga. We have a live viewer from Israel. Hello, good afternoon to you over there in Israel, Miss Regine de Guzman. We also have live viewers based in the Philippines. Kim Estoya and Rex Santillana are both in Makati. Hopefully, you can visit Sir Brian's Niner Makati, which is just located beside Makati Med. Niner Makati, by the way, is open every day from Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. onwards. And guess who is the face-to-face lecturer of Niner Makati? None other than Sir Brian himself. Glenn Alea Agruda is watching from Taguig, which is the city next to Makati. So if you have extra time, why don't you pay Niner Makati a visit and be trained by Sir Brian himself? Okay, Dionel Barlolong is watching all the way from Cabanatuan City. Good news, Niner Cabanatuan will reopen on March 21 and I will be there personally. Right now, the office is undergoing renovation, so we hope to see Lionel Barlolong in Cabanatuan on March 21. Bassem Ber7 Waheb is watching all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Abdel Salam Halfaya is watching from Egypt. So, good afternoon to our brothers and sisters in the Middle East and North Africa. Jay Salain Villanueva is watching from Singapore. Hello, Akram Khan. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. And Kinetics USA Nursing just commented, in the event that you do not have any ongoing application, all you have to do is to visit the link cusa.link/niner. Then upload a copy of your resume so that the representatives of Kinetics are going to assess your qualifications and they will schedule you for interview. So if you know anyone who has not started a single step in their application in going to the United States, all you have to do is to visit cusa.link/niner. What about the others? Thank you, Rex Santillana, for tagging your friend Reynaldo. Glenn tagged Defino Valerie, and Memay Labiaro Caberic is also watching from the Philippines. Oh, we have one from Europe. Bella Swan is watching all the way from UK. Then Jean Louise is from Santiago, Isabela. Jean, please give me an idea because I'm not really familiar with the geography of Region 2, but I'll be visiting Niner, Kawayan, Isabela for the reopening on March 29. The reason why I'm asking is because will you please give me an idea how long is the travel time from Santiago to Kawayan? Is it practical for us to just reopen one branch in Isabela and that's Kawayan? Or do you think it's better that we should also put up a new branch in Santiago, Isabela? I'm sure I've been to both cities before, but God knows when, maybe at least 10 years ago. So we need the help of our live viewers. And this is the reason why you're joining us live. You ask questions, we ask questions, and we interact, as this is going to last for approximately 1 hour. So now that we have greeted the live viewers, keep on tagging your friends. But now, first things first, we're going to give you an idea of IELTS reading versus PTE reading. For the longest time, USA only accepted IELTS. It's just that last year CGFNS announced that apart from IELTS, there are other English examinations which you may use when you apply for your visa screen, namely OET, TOEFL, and PTE. But since August, we have noticed that the top two most popular are IELTS and PTE. Let's begin with the similarities. Sir Brian right here has taken both examinations. Got perfect 9 in IELTS reading, got perfect 90 over 90 in PTE reading. I, on the other hand, have taken just one examination, and that's IELTS reading. So let's begin with the similarities. Let's ask Sir Brian right here, who has taken both exams. So, Sir Brian, what are the similarities between IELTS reading and PTE reading?
Well, thank you for that question. And the answer to that is straight and very simple. Both of them are receptive skills. So, reading for IELTS and reading for the PTE will be precisely identical in terms of the skills that you will be required to show to the examiners to be able to prove that you can get a good score. You need to be able to, number one, read the passages, number two, read the questions, and number three, pick out answers or answer the questions that are provided for you. So, of utmost importance in both reading tests would be your reading comprehension, that you're able to understand precisely what you're reading. And number two, you also need to ensure that you can finish on time. So there's also speed involved. So it's a balance between speed and your comprehension. You should be able to understand what you're reading and at the same time be able to quickly find the correct answers. Also, in both examinations, you're not required to read everything to get the answers because in both exams, reading needs to be purposive, in which you're going to just look at the passages, try to look at where you're going to probably find the answers, and you will definitely be able to locate the answers to the questions without having to read the entire passage. There are striking differences, but I think these are also some similarities that you should look into when you're taking these exams. More than that, there's IELTS on computer, and there's also PTE, which is a computer delivered examination. They're alike in the sense that they're delivered through a computer, but there are also a lot of differences because IELTS is delivered through two different modalities. And right now, there's the at home version as well, or IELTS online test at home. So when it comes to the manner of delivery, there is just a slight similarity between the IELTS and the PT. I think there are actually more differences in terms of the test format, in terms of the delivery of the examination, and how you're graded in the test. But again, at the bottom of it all, comprehension is very important in both examinations. You should train yourself to comprehend what you're reading, and at the same time, you should prepare for both exams. I think that's the ultimate similarity. Both exams require preparation, and the preparation that you have for one might not be identical to the other. So you need to make sure to invest in test preparation, spend some time not only enhancing your reading comprehension, but also preparing for test taking strategies to address the questions that you're going to receive for both exams.
Thank you for that, Sir Brian. Now, in IELTS, there's IELTS Academic and IELTS General Training. So before we move on to which of the two modules you're supposed to take as a nurse going to the United States, here's a quick difference between the two. The academic passages are usually longer, sometimes up to 700 words per passage. At the end of the day, three passages of up to 700 words. That means to say, in IELTS reading, there is a possibility that you're going to read up to 2,000 words. If it's IELTS general training, the passages are shorter, sometimes up to 400 words, but there is a possibility for you to read more passages, sometimes four. At the end of the day, academic module or general training module, you're going to read passages, but the academic passages are always longer than the general training passages. Now, the question is who usually take IELTS general training? Number one, fiancés. Number two, spouses going to US, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Number three, if you are a skilled worker, namely a butcher, welder, electrician, lineman, mechanic, carpenter, painter, cook, definitely it's the IELTS general training module. Or number four, if you are migrating to Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, applying for immigrant visa, it's the general training module. However, who are taking the academic module? Number one, student visa applicants. And number two, the nurses and medical technologists who would like to practice their profession in Ireland, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and most importantly, the United States of America. So I assume that the 121 live viewers watching us right now are the ones who are interested to go to the United States of America. Without a doubt, it's the academic module that you are supposed to take. So in IELTS, it's either ACAD or GT. But let me ask Sir Brian right here. In IELTS, if there is ACAD and general, in PTE, is there such thing as PTE academic and PTE general, Sir Brian?
Well, right now, you're supposed to take only PTE academic, and PTE academic is the examination that is accepted globally, the one that is recognized by many institutions, including the CGFNS. So, in your case, you will have to take PTE academic. So, that's the only option that you have. Unlike IELTS, you have a couple of options, and both are globally recognized. The PTE has only one module that you will have to take, which is the PTE academic examination.
Thank you for that, Sir Brian. Now, my next question for him later is he already discussed the similarities between IELTS academic, or rather IELTS reading and PTE reading. So my question for him later on is, what about the differences when it comes to the test format or the types of questions? But before Sir Brian is going to answer this one, let me mention that in IELTS, you have three options basically taking the IELTS on paper, IELTS on computer, or IELTS at home. FYI, if you are a nurse or a healthcare professional going to the United States of America applying for visa screen, you cannot take IELTS examination at home. who are allowed to take IELTS online tests at home, only the student visa applicants. So if you're targeting America, you have to pick between the two, either IELTS on paper or IELTS on computer. The $1 million question that people usually ask. So which one is easier? Is it IELTS on paper or IELTS on computer? I don't really think this is a question you must ask yourself, but I think it's better to ask yourself, which one are you more comfortable with? Are
Mhm.
you the technologically savvy person like Sir Brian right here who prefers to take all of his examinations on computer? Or are you the typically backward person, traditional person, like the human that I am, who always prefers to take the examination on paper? But one thing for you to know, guys, if you're going to take IELTS on paper, the results are out in 13 calendar days after the written exams. However, if you're going to take IELTS on computer, the results are out in what? Just 3 to 5 days after the written exams. So if you are in a hurry to submit your result, go for IELTS on computer. However, if you are patient, you are willing to wait, then IELTS on paper, well, that's when the results are released after 13 calendar days. Now, one thing more that will help you decide whether to take the examination on paper or examination on computer. For IELTS on paper, maximum of 4 times a month. So normally 3 Saturdays and 1 Thursday. However, if you're going to take IELTS on computer, it totally depends on the location. So speaking of location, sometimes if you're taking the examination in the capital, so in Metro Manila, there are venues for computer delivered IELTS like Manila and Makati, where the examination is conducted 3 times a day: 9 to 12 in the morning, 1 to 4 in the afternoon, 5 to 8 in the evening, and 7 days a week. So, in 1 year out of 365 days, I can only count the days when IELTS on computer is not available. Say, for instance, a Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Holy Week. But other than that, even on public holidays, IELTS on computer is available. So sometimes you have to wait for another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks for you to take IELTS on paper. But for IELTS on computer, you can take it anytime, any day. So we're done with a quick comparison between IELTS on paper and IELTS on computer. But let's ask Sir Brian right here, what basically are the differences between IELTS reading and PTE reading. But having said that, will you please use the comment section, ask us questions, anything related to IELTS and PTE, and we are here to answer them for you. But while you're typing your questions, let's ask Sir Brian, what are the differences between IELTS reading and PTE reading?
That's a great question, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to know. So, first, the length of the test.
Mm-hmm.
IELTS is significantly longer compared to the PTE, and the reading test of the IELTS is for about an hour, whereas in the PTE, it will be significantly shorter because the total amount of time that you should be spending for the entire test is just 2 hours. In the same manner, the number of test questions will also be different because when you're taking IELTS, it's standard. You have 40 items. You're assured that you're going to get 40 items. Whereas when you're taking the PTE, sometimes you get fewer items or more items depending on your performance. There's no standard total number of points that you're going to get. And the computer can throw so many questions to you or just a few just to test your language capacity. And also, most importantly, the type of questions. So in IELTS, there are certain types of questions that do not come out in the PTE. For example, true false not given and matching headings to paragraphs are two of the types of questions that you get in IELTS but you don't get in the PTE. In the same fashion that in the PTE there's reorder paragraphs, you don't get that in IELTS, but it is only found in the PTE. Although a lot of different questions that you get for both the IELTS and the PTE are identical, these are two very notable types of questions that do not appear in one and appears that appear in the other. Also, I would have to say, because personally I've taken both exams, that the PTE passages are relatively shorter compared to the IELTS passages. So IELTS passages are longer because you have more questions per passage. Now, in PTE, the passages are significantly shorter. However, there's only usually one question for that passage. So, in essence, I believe there's also a challenge when you're taking the PTE, even if there are shorter passages, because you only get 1 point for one passage. Unlike in the IELTS, in one passage, you get maybe 13 points or 14 points sometimes. I would also have to say that another struggle that you will encounter in the PTE in comparison to the IELTS, whether it be the computer administered or computer delivered IELTS test format or the paper delivered IELTS, is that you cannot go back in PTE. There's only moving forward. So when you answer a question and you move on to the next item, you cannot go back anymore. It's touch move, guys. So you cannot change your answers anymore. In the IELTS, even in the IELTS on computer, there is actually an opportunity for you to go back to questions that you have not been able to answer, or perhaps check your entire, um, response for the entire test. If you have spare time at the end of the examination, you can go to literally any question and check your answers or change your answers midway or even at the end of the examination when you still have time. So I think those are the differences, and I hope that these differences will help you to kind of decide which one is a better option for you to take, whether it be IELTS or the PT.
I think it's also important for our audience, our viewers and listeners worldwide to know that in IELTS, you are not required a specific grade in listening, reading, and writing, whereas in
Mm.
PTE, you need to get a specific score for listening, reading, and writing. So let's talk about the IELTS requirement. If you are a nurse or a medical technologist going to the United States of America, you need to get a 7 in speaking and 6.5 overall band score, regardless of the grade that you get in listening, reading, and writing. Having said that, if you only get 5.0 in listening, 5.0 in reading, 5.0 in writing, can you still go to the United States of America? The answer is of course. That's because US does not really care whatever grade you get for IELTS listening, reading, and writing. As long as your speaking is 7 and the overall band is 6.5. But what about PTE? You need to get a specific band score for each of the four subtests. So you need to get 50 in listening, 50 in reading, 50 in writing, 50 in speaking, and overall band score of 55. So just in case you might be wondering, what if you got 90 in PTE speaking, 90 in PTE writing, 90 in PTE listening, but your writing is just 49? This means to say that you do not qualify for US visa screen. That's why you have to consider that in PTE there is a required band score in listening, reading, writing, and speaking, whereas for IELTS, it's only speaking and overall band score that matter. Now, let's take a look at some of the comments of our live viewers because now we are at 124 and we are halfway through our discussion. Let's take a look. Yara Princess El Gendi is watching all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We have another one from the Middle East. It's Apple Taytayon, Abu Dhabi. Mortala Mohammed is watching us all the way from Nigeria. So good afternoon to you over there in Nigeria. Owapel Anona is watching from Cebu. Maayong gabi sa akong mga kaigsuunan sa Visayas and Mindanao. I'll be back uh, this coming March 10, I'll be visiting Niner Cebu. And then March 25, I'll be visiting Niner Davao. So I'll see you there, ladies and gentlemen. And then we have our Tugigaraw branch commenting Niner with an emoji. So knowing that we're halfway through our discussion, let's ask Sir Brian right here. What exactly did you do to get the perfect 90 over 90 in PTE reading? After that, I'll share what I did in order to get, or in order for me the strategies that helped me to get the perfect 9.0 in IELTS reading. Well, I have to ask Sir Brian first because he's the one who took PTE and I have not taken both, but instead I've only taken the IELTS. So IELTS will be discussed later. Let's begin with Sir Brian's test taking strategies for PTE. So, Sir Brian, did you read every single word? Did you
Mm.
have to understand everything? Let's hear your thoughts to help our reviewees or our live viewers to get the same grade as yours.
Okay. Well, there are certain questions in which you have to read everything, but there are also certain items in which you just have to skim and scan. So I think the best tip I can give to candidates who would want to take the PTE is to make sure you're familiar with the test items or the test questions that you're going to get. So there are five different types of questions that you can get in the PTE. And unlike other exams in which you only get maybe three types or four types of questions randomly, in the PTE, all of those types of questions will appear in the test. So you have multiple choice, choose single answer, multiple choice, choose multiple answers, I'm sorry, reorder paragraphs. You also get your fill in the blanks for reading and fill in the blanks for writing. Now, ultimately, I believe that the reading examination of the PTE is more language focused, which means to say that it is not enough that you have good comprehension. It is not sufficient that you can understand what you're reading. It is also equally important, especially for reading and writing fill in the blanks, for you to have excellent knowledge of your vocabulary and grammar. So these are fundamental skills that you should learn when you're taking the PTE. So if you're always getting low grades for PTE, say for example, you've taken the examination before and you keep flunking the reading component of the PTE, try to assess not only your ability to comprehend what you're reading, but also your ability to pick out the correct collocations, the correct word combinations, the correct vocabulary to use for particular situations, and what sounds familiar and what sounds kind of wrong. So these are things that you need to learn for you to be able to optimize your test results because unlike in other English exams in which you get 1 point for every question, there are certain items in the PTE that are of greater weight because there are plenty of items that you're going to get for each type of question. For example, fill in the blanks will actually share a greater proportion to your test score. So strategizing is very important. And secondly, and I think very important as well, is you have to manage your time because a lot of candidates don't finish the reading test simply because they spend so much time on, for example, multiple choice. It's very time consuming to answer these types of questions that they lose all the time that they have for the more important types of questions like fill in the blanks, which will come usually later into your reading examination. And a lot of people cannot finish the examination and lose significant numbers of points when they get to the latter part of the examination because they just didn't get the chance to answer the questions at the end of the test. So you always want to look at the timer on the screen. It's at the topmost portion of the screen. You can't miss it. Always look at the time and make sure that you're managing your number of items in relation to the amount of time that you still have in the test. These two tips, knowing how to take the exam or being familiar with the different types of questions and the strategies for them, plus managing your time in the PTE can help you not only to succeed in getting a 50 in your PTE reading, but probably potentially get the highest possible grade, which is 90 over 90 in the PTE reading test.
Sir Brian, I have a question. Would you still remember how many of you were taking the PTE together inside the computer laboratory?
Yeah.
10, 15, 20?
Yeah, this was pre-pandemic and there were more than 10, so around I would say 15 max tops when I took the examination. But right now, I think that's also the same number because I can see when you book your slots for the PTE that everything is already taken, at least for the next few days.
6 months.
So
Mhm.
it means that there's a high chance that there are plenty of people inside the room. And just like any examination in which there are a lot of people inside, there can be a lot of distractors when you're taking the examination, especially when you hear the clacking sounds of the keyboard and when everyone's typing, it can be quite noisy inside. So you have to be extremely concentrated. So I also want to give that piece of advice to people to always maintain your focus and attention, and to be um, not easily distracted in your test, because if you're easily distracted, I think this exam is not for you. Because if you cannot focus, there will be a lot of distractions in the background, and since it can be very confusing when a lot of people are working on their tests and everyone's frantic inside the room, it can potentially impact your test performance in the test.
That's perhaps the reason why I asked Sir Brian how many of them took the examination together. So imagine 15 people using the keyboard all at the same time. I admit that I'm easily distracted. That's why I don't want to take the examination on computer. I always prefer to take the examination on paper, because when everyone is dealing with their individual test booklets and answer sheets, and basically you are on your own in one table, then you don't have to worry about the sounds of noisy keyboards
Hmm.
inside the big function room. That's something for you to consider. Are you the kind of person who easily gets distracted? Then you might want to take an examination which offers a paper based version. So, thank you, Sir Brian, for sharing your thoughts. Now it's my time for me to share with you how come, even if I am not really fond of reading, still I was able to get a 9.0 in the IELTS reading component. And this is simple. You need to know your objective. Is your objective in IELTS reading to enjoy what you are reading? Is your objective in this examination to understand every single word? No, that's not it. So we want our audience to be engaged. Let's take a look at the 128 live viewers. Will you please use the comments section and tell us, what do you think must be your primary objective in IELTS reading? I already gave you a clue. It's not to enjoy what you are reading. It is not to even understand every single word. So use the comment section. What do you think is the primary objective in IELTS reading? When you know your objective, that's the only way for you to pass, or who knows, you might even get the perfect score. Okay, thank you so much, Leng Alia. You were able to get it right, and that is to answer the questions. Imagine how many questions are there in one passage? 13 to 14 questions. But how many words are there in one passage? Up to 700 words. Truth of the matter is, there are more details that you do not need than the details that you need. So, how do you know if the specific sentence contains an answer? This is why at 9.09er, we recommend that you read the questions first. Doing so will allow you to identify which information to absorb and which information to disregard. So, read the 13 or 14 questions. The moment you start reading, say for instance, the first sentence, and the first sentence does not contain any answer, what's the point of absorbing the information? Let go of the first sentence, move on to the next sentence. Remember, you are not supposed to force yourself to understand all of the words. Say, for instance, you encounter a word that you did not understand. Say, for instance, sir, what about quandary? I'm not really sure how it functions in this sentence. Or I encountered the word etymology. Fret not, do not worry, especially if these words are not answers to the questions. So please do not force yourself to understand every single word. What's most important, you go to the questions in order for you to learn, or in order for you to have an idea which info to absorb. Now, while you are reading, I want you to stop the moment you find an answer. And what do? You go to that question to answer that, so that later on you don't have to think of this question anymore because you're done with that. In fact, the glory of this is you don't have to go back to the portions that you have finished reading. And I promise, I can look at you straight in the eye right now. It is even possible to finish answering all the 13 to 14 questions before you reach the last sentence of the passage. In some cases, and I should know because I've been teaching since May of 2006, that means to say I'm turning 17 years old in this industry. Gosh, I'm a dinosaur in this industry. Having uh, taught IELTS for nearly 17 years of my life. What I want you to know is there are certain cases in which before you reach the last paragraph, it's possible that you have answered all the questions already. So, guys, let's have a quick rundown. What are the three easy steps that you're supposed to follow in the reading subtest? Number one, read the questions first. Number two, read the passage while you are answering the questions at the same time. Now, I want to ask Sir Brian right here whether IELTS reading or PTE reading, do you think candidates should focus more on the easy questions or the difficult questions, and why?
Okay, sorry about that. My microphone started to malfunction again. Anyway, the answer to that question is you should focus on easy questions, at least for the IELTS, because every question gives you 1 point. Whether it's an easy or average or difficult question, you only get 1 point. You don't get extra credit just because the question is extremely hard. So, your goal generally in reading is to answer as many easy questions as you can. However, in the PTE, even if you want to focus on the easier questions, there's absolutely no choice because it only moves forward. So you'll have to encounter all of the questions. Now, the best thing that you can do if the question is extremely tough and it's taking you more time is to guess the correct answer and just let it go. Move on to the next item because you will miss more chances if you answer one very difficult question for an extended period of time. So if it's extremely difficult, probably have a guess. Who knows? Maybe it's right. And then move on to the next question. You have to prioritize the latter sections of your test, which are the fill in the blanks portions where you will get the most number of points. Because if you don't get there, then chances are you will not be able to clear your PTE. So I think with regard to prioritizing easier questions, the IELTS really has an upper hand compared to the PTE because in the PTE, you don't have an option to go forward or move back and go back to any question that you have not been able to answer. So I think the IELTS has an advantage in that regard.
Thank you for that, Sir Brian. Now we're moving on to the crucial part of our discussion, how to deal with matching headings and how to deal with true, false, not given. These are types of questions that candidates of various English examinations find confusing. Well, it's confusing if no one is going to tell you the effective test taking strategies. I'll begin with matching headings and I'll request Sir Brian to talk about true, false, not given later on. This is the idea. In most English examinations, the paragraphs are numbered. Say, for instance, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. For each of the paragraphs, you're going to identify an appropriate heading. Sometimes there is an equal number of paragraphs and headings. Say, for instance, 8 paragraphs and 8 headings. And I'd say this is the easier type, knowing that all of the 8 headings are answers for sure. But English examinations are not a giveaway. For these high stakes English exams, there is a tendency that there are more headings than the number of paragraphs. So, what if there are 10 headings but only 6 paragraphs? This is a bit more confusing because you're provided 4 fillers, unnecessary options just to make it confusing for you. Now, in identifying the heading, ask yourself, which particular paragraph discusses this information? You don't always have to ask yourself, is this the appropriate heading for the entire paragraph? You know why? In my nearly 17 years of teaching IELTS, I just noticed that there are certain instances when the heading is not discussed in the entire paragraph, but it's only mentioned in one sentence. So please, for the life of you, do not ask yourself which heading best represents this paragraph, but it's best to ask yourself which particular paragraph contains this heading or this information. If you're able to do that, then I can guarantee not necessarily the perfect grade for matching headings, but at least a safe one for that matter. At the same time, I need you to identify the headings, or rather, the keywords for these headings. But do not always assume that it's the exact word that you're going to find in the passage. Sometimes they use something else. Let's think of a perfect example. Say, for instance, the word in the heading is mixture. But when you read the passage, you don't always expect to encounter the word mixture. Sometimes they use the word range, or sometimes the word variety, or sometimes the word diversity, which means to say, the more words you understand, the higher your comprehension level, the easier the reading subtest will be. But if your vocab is rather limited, then you will have a difficult time in absorbing the details or absorbing the information. So, what is 9.09ers recommendation? Build your vocabulary. With more words that you know, with more words that you understand, the easier the reading subtest will be. So, hopefully, that tip will help you in getting a better score when you deal with matching headings the next time. Now, let's turn you over to Sir Brian. How come in high school, true or false as a type of question is very manageable, but in English exams, how come true, false, not given could sometimes be mind boggling? Sir Brian?
Well, the answer to that question is because there's not given. Back then, when we were in school, we just had to choose between two options, true or false. But because of the other option, which is not given, it makes it a bit more complicated when you're taking an English exam, such as the IELTS. So before I proceed to one tip, actually, there are many tips for true, false, not given. And you would be very glad to know that we teach all of them in class. I will be sharing with you just one for today. I just need you to understand the meaning of true, false, and not given. So it is very important that you understand when a statement is true, when it is false, and when it is not given. So it's true when the information can be found in the text, and at the same time it matches the information that is given, even if the words are not precisely identical, because sometimes synonyms are used in the test, so you don't see the exact keywords that you can find this in the statement with that of the passage. You say not given, or sorry, you say false when you can find the information in the text, but it is inconsistent or it is opposite of what is expressed in the passage. So there's something wrong in how the statement is constructed. It is not aligned with the context that is being conveyed by the passage. So you say it's false. Now, it gets confusing because of the option not given, and not given is actually the answer when you cannot find that information in the text. Even if deep in your heart you feel it is likely true or false, your feelings do not matter because the passage is the only source of answers for true, false, not given, not your feelings. So even if you have a hunch that this is likely true or likely false based on your comprehension of the passage, it is not given if it is not expressly indicated in the passage. So that's easier said than done, actually. So this requires a lot of practice, and there's really a learning curve when it comes to true, false, not given. So I'm just going to share with you one piece of advice, and this is that all of the items in true, false, not given, in most cases, I'm not saying all the time, in most cases, come out in chronological order. What this means is if you get the answer for question number one in the first paragraph, and then as you read along and you went on to the second paragraph, you saw the answer to question number three and you missed number two, there's no answer in number two. You can only find the answer to question number two between paragraph one and paragraph two. The answers for number one and number three in between, and never at the end of the passage or elsewhere. And if you still cannot find it between number one and number three's answers, then perhaps the correct answer is not given. It's either one of the two. You missed it, and it's between the two different answers, or it is not given. So, just in case you're a little bit confused, that's a strategy that will help you to get the correct answers every time. And this is really very surprising because a lot of our students who try out true, false, not given for the first time without review, without preparation whatsoever, usually get 1, 2 points out of 5, or sometimes zero. And it is so surprising sometimes. And um, gratifying to see many of our students getting perfect scores for true false not given after preparing with 9.09er. This has happened to a lot of our students in the past, including myself, because I prepared with 9.09er. I started with 0 over 5. So for true false not given back then, I was getting 0 out of 5 or 6 items. I get like 1 or 2. But because of the lessons that I had and the practice that I had also with 9.09er. Before I took the examination, I can remember I was getting 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 6, a perfect mark for true false not given. And so can you. So don't get disheartened. There are strategies you can employ. There's a learning curve. There needs to be a lot of practice, dedication, and motivation, but surely you can make it.
Thank you for the insights, Sir Brian. Now, as we are nearing the end of our Facebook Live session for tonight, please allow me to take this golden opportunity to thank Connetics for the support, because 9.09er this 2023 is actually reopening up to 34 branches nationwide. And Connetics was there with us during the most difficult time of the pandemic. Until now, Connetics is consistently sending their Filipino candidates to us for IELTS and PTE review. So with that, thank you so much, Connetics. Now, we want you to know that 9.09er and Connetics, we are not about selling all the time. That's why Connetics has a show every Friday night. That's Onwards and Upwards show featuring the CEO of Connetics, Miss Tanya Friedman. Also, I'd like to invite you to mark your calendars every Monday at 8 p.m., at least Philippine time. It depends on where you are, because sometimes it might be 3 p.m. when you are in Saudi Arabia, or who knows, 12 noon if you are in Africa. Please do not forget Connetics College Facebook Live session every Monday. So first Monday and third Monday of the month, free NCLEX lessons courtesy of the partner review centers of Connetics. There's Aspire RN and iPass Mentoring Academy. But for English examinations, namely IELTS, OET, PTE, TOEFL, and CELPIP, that's not CELPIP because that's for Canada. It's just IELTS, OET, PTE, and TOEFL every second and fourth Monday of the month. So second Monday of the month, swoosh English, and then fourth Monday of the month, 9.09er. Now, we want you to suggest which topics would you like us to talk about for Mondays from now, because 9.09er is limited to reading and speaking, and swoosh is the one usually discussing listening and speaking. So last month we talked about writing task 2. Now we're discussing reading. Who knows, 4 weeks from now we might be dealing with bar graphs and line graphs. I just want to ask Sir Brian, in PTE writing, is there statistical writing as well?
No, you don't get that in PTE. You only have summaries for PTE, but the second part is very identical to the IELTS. It's an essay writing test.
Thank you for that, Sir Brian. So that gave me an idea. Maybe we'll be doing statistical writing and summary writing for
Oh, that's
Mondays from now.
exciting.
Yes, because it's something that we have not done before. So as you can see, Sir Brian and I literally talk every day. We just talk, 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 talk. So sometimes we're also bored with the information that we're discussing. So we're excited. We're interested in something that we have not done before. As you can see, we don't use any PowerPoint presentation. We don't look at any piece of paper. We literally just open our mouth. And this is what familiarity does. It becomes as natural as breathing. So you saw the link earlier. In the event that you are interested to go to the United States of America and no one is helping you out with the process, do not forget to visit cusa.link/niner. If ever you are in Bulacan area, I will be in Niner Malolos tomorrow for the reopening. And then, if you live in the province of Batangas, I'll be in Niner Lipa for the reopening on Thursday. However, if you come from the northern part of Luzon, this coming Saturday, it's the British Council IELTS Fair in Baguio. Then I'll go down to Urdaneta the following day for the reopening of Niner Urdaneta. So it's a jam-packed schedule until Sunday of this week. But for now, we'd like to thank everyone who stayed, and hopefully you were able to learn something important to help you decide, should you go for IELTS reading or PTE reading? And you feel that you want some more, kindly visit 9.09er YouTube channel. You'll know it's the right page because it has nearly 35,000 subscribers, or some, who knows, it could be more. We have more than 100 free videos discussing the various English exams, plus listening, reading, writing, speaking, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and accent neutralization. Or if you're not a visual person, but you are more of an auditory person, we also have several episodes. If I'm not mistaken, more than 30 episodes already on our Spotify account. So all you have to do is to look for English Weekly with 9.09er. So that has been a very fruitful discussion in the last hour. Thank you once again to Miss Malanes and to all of you. We'll see you in 4 weeks. But for now, we'd like to say good night, good afternoon, good morning, and goodbye. Thank you once again, guys.